Welcome back. Senate Republicans have introduced provisions in a major bill ending federal tax support for wind and solar energy by 2027, imposing new taxes on future projects, potentially jeopardizing hundreds of clean energy developments and thousands of jobs. The bill actually shifts support towards fossil fuels, raising concern about higher energy costs, grid reliability, and U.S. competitiveness in clean energy. Now, the bill has passed, and it should go to the House, and we'll get a full update right now. Joining me now is the Executive Director of E2, Bob Keefe. And Bob, thank you for joining us. And as we said, late developments, but let's get up to speed, get our viewers up to speed as to where we are with the bill.
You bet. Thanks, Daren, and thanks for having me on.
Great.
You've got it exactly right. What this is going to do is going to make energy more expensive. It's going to threaten jobs. It's going to tighten our shackles to oil and gas, which will continue to make our air dirtier, our water less clean, our climate more unstable in the Bronx and across the country. And as you mentioned, it threatens to kill tens of thousands of jobs and frankly, derail one of the biggest economic booms we've seen in generations in this country, including in New York. And, you know, that sounds like a lot. That sounds like potentially hyperbole, but let me tell you, it's not. We've been tracking the data. We've been tracking the impacts on jobs and business investments, and we know what's already happening. And unfortunately, if this bill passes, which it probably will in the House in the next couple of days and go to President Trump's desk for signature on July 4th, it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad news for our economy and our environment.
So let's talk about the economy and environment for a minute. What are the potential fallouts that, everyday people could expect?
Well, look, it's always kind of arcane to talk about tax policy. Nobody understands it, but let me tell you what has happened because of the tax policies that are now getting killed. When these policies were passed less than 3 years ago, it sparked an economic boom in this country. We've seen more than $130 billion worth of business investments and more than 400 major projects, clean energy related projects around the country, solar panel factories in upstate New York, battery factories, electric vehicle factories, big solar projects like you have at JFK that's using cleaner energy to power one of the world's biggest airports. It reduced the price of residential solar by 30%. It reduced the cost of an electric vehicle by $7,500. All of that just got killed by the Senate. And will be killed probably by the House, as I mentioned, in the next couple of days. So what does that mean? That means higher electricity prices because we're not going to have that power going on the grid that we need desperately now with electricity demand rising. It's going to mean less job security for the 175,000 New Yorkers who work in clean energy projects, not to mention the tens of thousands of others who work in construction and other industries that support things like these factories and installation of solar and electric vehicle factories and things like that. And it's going to mean that we're less competitive against places like China, which is pulling ahead of the entire world in these areas. And we're going to be beholden to them, unfortunately, for the products we need instead of making them right here in America.
Yeah. So somebody on the outside looks at it and says, listen, what is the real rationale here of creating this new tax? And of course, we know revenue is always going to be the benefit, but what else can you say other than revenue is going to be the benefit of this new tax?
Well, I think the president made it pretty clear, both on the campaign trail and now in office, that he wants to do whatever he can to support the oil and gas industry. This is a gift to the oil and gas industry.
Yeah. We know that there's a lot of conversation that's being held from here. As I look, it looks pretty doom and gloom on that side. But where do you go from here, given the fact that this is going to take shape?
What's the silver lining? What's the bright side, man? I wish I had more of that. I wish I could say more, but this is about as ugly as it gets, quite honestly, for our economy and our environment. Again, these tax policies that just got rescinded or are on their way to be rescinded has sparked an economic boom like we haven't seen in this country. It was finally putting us on track to get more of our energy from clean sources like solar and wind and batteries. The technology of all of those things is finally caught up with the problem. And now we have a Congress and a White House that just simply wants to kill it and walk away from it at a time when electricity demand in this country, thanks to everything from AI to data centers to everything you and I plug into a wall, is expected to increase by 50% between now and 2040.
Right.
We've got to figure out how to meet that demand, and we had the opportunity in front of us to do it with the cheapest, quickest to deploy power there is: solar, wind, and batteries. And unfortunately, we have uh, folks in Washington that want to kill that.
Well, I do know that, as you look across the globe and globally, a lot of countries have really talked about the renewable interests, and they have
Yeah.
really put forward plans to say, listen, when it comes to renewable energy, we're gonna take this seriously, and we're gonna make some positive steps. Looking at a bill such as this, seeing what's happening right now, how do you measure, or how could one measure, the United States in the area of commitment towards this? Because as leadership leads, we have to follow. But from those on a global perspective, what do you think that says to them when it comes to the United States?
Well, look, first of all, let's remember that America invented this stuff, Darren. I mean, look, the solar panel was invented at Bell Labs in New Jersey. We deployed the first wind turbines at scale, and the technology behind that in America. We created the technology behind the lithium ion battery, and then we let it all go away. As a result, China right now, for instance, is putting more clean energy, renewables, on its grid every year than we actually have in total in this country. Yes, they're still putting up coal plants. They need to quit that, but they are deploying more clean energy than any other country. We've got to catch up with that. China now produces more electric vehicles than any country in the world. So if the president is sincere about wanting to compete against China and the rest of the world, if he's sincere about wanting to reinvigorate manufacturing in America, if he's sincere about addressing the energy emergency, which he's probably right about, we need as much electricity as we can these days, then the policy that Congress just passed and that he's going to sign probably on July 4th does the exact opposite of all of those things.
But Bob,
Uh,
I think also
yeah,
one of the things that we have to talk about is the fact of the job creation and job loss, right? We talk about
absolutely.
the employment rate. When we look at a bill such as this, what is the potential job loss rate that we're going to see here?
Well, look, the Building Trades Union just came out with a report that says the rescinding of these policies are going to kill nearly 1.75 million construction jobs. That's just construction jobs building this stuff. Now, across America, there are 3.3 million people that work in clean energy occupations: solar panel installers, wind turbine technicians, yes, but also think about it, energy efficiency workers that make our buildings more energy efficient. Factory workers building electric vehicles and Energy Star appliances that reduce the demand that we need and the cost of energy in America. All those jobs are now at risk. I mean, and it's not an overstatement to say that, because look, when you roll back these policies, that means less, or make them more expensive. That means less demand. That means less need for the jobs for the businesses that are in this industry, and it's a huge industry.
Right. Well, as a global force, how do you see us?
We just went from far behind to losing.
And when we talk about China, which is always the thought of, the thought across the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, well, look, think about it. I mean, China right now controls about 90% of the market for solar panels in the world, and it's a huge industry. Clean energy is estimated as a $23 trillion global business. China controls about 90% of China and a couple other countries control about 90% of the market for solar panels. It controls about 90% of the market for batteries. America, quite frankly, did not have a dog in the hunt, Darren. We were so far behind that we couldn't possibly catch up. But guess what? 3 years ago, when these tax policies were passed as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, Since then, we've seen more than 60 solar panel factories announced across America. We've seen 50 battery factories announced across America. We've seen more than 140 electric vehicle factories and supply factories for that industry announced across America. Again, more than 125,000 jobs announced just in the past 3 years. That's where we were headed. But guess what? Since Congress started talking about this, since January, we've seen more than $15 billion worth of those projects canceled, 11,000 jobs canceled. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's before they passed this bill that they just passed in the Senate yesterday, and they're going to pass in the House this week. So $15 billion worth of American investments in America, 11,000 jobs already lost just because of the threat of this legislation. Think about what's going to happen when the president signs it.
I asked the question before about where we were globally, and I think that that's going to be huge. But
Yeah.
now I turn my attention to where are we in the sight of people here in America? Because when you think about it, a lot of people behind this bill are going to have questions, and not just questions, they're going to have reservations because
Yeah.
as prices are going up, the first thing they're going to say is energy prices, utility prices, these things are set to probably see, we've seen record numbers before, probably reintroduced.
Yeah. Well, look, here's the deal. And you don't have to be an economist to figure this out. Last year and this year, 90% of all new energy put on the grid came from three sources: solar, wind, and batteries. Why? Not because utilities necessarily like polar bears or parts per million or whatever, because it's the cheapest, quickest to deploy power there is. So 90% of the power that went on the grid last year and is expected to go on the grid this year came from those three sources. What Congress just did was make them much more expensive to do that and much harder to build those projects. As a result, there are studies that show that consumer costs are going to rise as much as $400 a year for electricity over the next decade. Businesses are expected to spend 10 to 15% more on energy just to keep their factories running and the lights on in their offices. And that's going to have a ripple effect throughout the entire economy.
Yeah. I think a lot of Americans, Bob, are hoping that, a part of a way to stem the tide would be the midterm elections coming up. And if we can get possibly some change in the midterm elections when it comes to energy, yeah, there could be some positive outcome. Talk to me about this, because having this on the docket, swing states, other states, how big is this going to play a role in the hearts and minds of people when we start talking about some of the, we got a bunch of issues, but this is certainly going to be, I believe, one of the things that we're going to be really focusing our attention on in conversations.
Well, what I'd say is this. First of all, my organization is nonpartisan. We work with Republicans, we work with Democrats, we work with anybody we can to make our economy cleaner and stronger and to make our environment better for all of us. And what I would say is that there should be nothing partisan at all about creating jobs, driving economic growth, being globally competitive, making sure we have the energy we need at a price that we can afford. What I will also add is that when you look at those 400 projects that I mentioned have been announced and are coming out of the ground, basically, and all across America, 80% of those projects, the investments in those projects, are going to Republican congressional districts. So Georgia is leading this clean energy boom right now. North Carolina is not far behind. Tennessee, Kentucky, Louisiana, believe it or not. These are where these solar panel factories are being built. It's where battery factories are being built. I was just in Georgia not too long ago, and the world's biggest the biggest solar panel factory in the Western Hemisphere is being built in the district of Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene. One of the biggest electric vehicle factories in the country is being built in Savannah in the district of Republican Buddy Carter. The governor of Georgia has said he wants to be the electric mobility capital of the world. And he was probably on track to do that until this legislation passed in Congress.
Right. Fossil fuels, bring that to the forefront right now. Is there going to be a more heavier reliance when it comes to fossil fuels here in America?
Well, look, obviously, if consumers are given less choices in the kinds of cars that they're driving, less choices in the kinds and where they get their electricity, it's going to keep us shackled to fossil fuels even more so. Um, if they're part of the problem there, though, is that fossil fuels, whether it's oil or gas or what have you, prices for those fuels are on the rise, and they will continue to rise. Uh, Quite simply, when you get your fuel for free, whether it's from the sun or the wind, and you can store that energy in batteries now, that reduces a lot of cost of energy. When you have to pay to drill it and pump it and burn it up, that costs a lot of money. You've got to pay for your fuel. It's like anything. So we're going to continue to see prices increase if we continue to stay shackled to fossil fuels for sure.
Yeah. Um, as you look to the future right now, what advice do you have for those in your industry, given the fact that this will probably definitely, by the time we air, yeah, be in effect?
Yeah, yeah.
What advice do you give for those in the industry right now?
Well, I'd say that we've faced setbacks before,
Right.
uh, and we will continue to face setbacks going forward. But the fact of the matter is, solar, wind, batteries is still about the cheapest power that you can develop right now. Uh, the American people have shown in poll after poll after poll that they want more choices in clean energy. They want more choices in energy. They want more choices in how they get around, whether it's in the Bronx or in LA or any other place in this country. So and the other thing to think about is that even if we go to, let's say, nuclear or gas, like some people are saying we can do, okay, fine, let's look at nuclear. It's going to take at least 15 years and billions of dollars to build the next nuclear plant, whether it's in New York or where have you. Okay, what about gas? It's going to take at least 5 to 7 years just to get a gas turbine built, to get a gas plant built. And by the way, both of those things would be more expensive to build than a comparable size solar farm or a wind farm, and be able to produce that would be able to produce just as much energy as that. So the economics are still in the favor of clean energy and a clean energy transition, but it gets mighty hard to get there as quickly as we need to get there when Washington keeps throwing up speed bumps and digging potholes in front of the road.
Yeah. Once again, let me dig back for a second. You got about 400 projects and plans that are going out there right now when it comes to energy and clean energy. When this bill, unfortunately, when this bill takes effect, how do we see these playing out with the 400 projects? Do you see them coming to a halt? Do you see things closing down?
Well, again, we know what's going to happen because we know it's been happening since January 1st, and talk of rescinding all these policies started. Again, we've seen $15 billion worth of projects canceled: battery factories, solar panel factories, or vehicle factories ranging from Ford to Rivian to GM scaling back already. And again, that was before the policy was passed. Businesses have to have some market certainty. They can only plan when they know what's coming. They had planned over the past 3 years to invest in America because they thought these policies would be in place for the next decade. What Congress just did was pull the rug out from underneath them, and they're going to have to adjust. And they're going to adjust by shuttering or shelving plans to expand factories. They're going to adjust by reducing workforce at the factories that they have. And they're going to have to additionally figure out how to pay for increased costs of energy.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's been great talking to you. Certainly, we want to bring you back and have more conversation. For people who want to find out more about this and really stay a little bit closer to the vest, and maybe somebody who's not familiar wants to get some more information, what would you recommend as some highly credible sources to really track what's happening here?
You bet. Well, if you want to check out those 400 plus projects, including about a dozen in New York, go to e2.org/announcements, or you can just go to it from our homepage. You can find out more about those projects. You can go to cleanjobsamerica.e2.org. to see how many people work in clean energy in the Bronx, in across the state, or anywhere else in America, and you'll get an idea of what's at risk here.
Yeah. Bob, it's been great having a conversation with you. Certainly, I want to thank you for bringing us up to speed. Of course, we're going to follow this, as we said, at the time. Now, let me tell my viewers again, at the time that we're going on, it hasn't quite passed all the way. Is the anticipation that it passes? Yes, it is. And of course, what it does, we're going to have Bob back on again, talk a little bit more about it. We'll unpack it and, see what the future holds. But Bob, stay strong, my brother. Great talking to you, and we'll talk soon.
Likewise, sir. Thank you so much.
All righty.